medicine within capitalism is broken, inexorably and unavoidably, because the theory of markets should not apply to something where people don't actually have a viable choice. For-profit prisons are a problem, right? One should not have a profit incentive that is against the liberty of the populace.
Right.
For-profit military-industrial complex is a problem.
Let me question that for a second, though. It seems like if you actually completely flipped the model, for example, paid a doctor for every month that you were perfectly healthy and you had no complaints, if the incentives were different, it seems like maybe the system, while not being perfect, could still be radically better than what it is now and still be a capitalist system.
So this is the key thing. That is a foundationally different system.
Yeah.
It is actually paying for health rather than paying for sickness services, right?
That's true.
So when you really start to get into what it would take to do that, there's a lot of problems, right? Because you get, individual responsibility of the people being problematic. You get to have an adequate system. I won't say what it takes to actually structure it right now because we'll have to dive down some deep economics rabbit holes, but we should do that sometime if you want. You do have to make sure that you don't have anywhere within the research or science or medical or regulation process an incentive for anything less than robust health and illness prevention.
Right.
And that's even things like right now, the IP is such that I've got to put in a shit ton of money up front in drug development. To ever make that money back, I've got to be able to patent my stuff so that I can charge a really high price as opposed to market competition on it, which means I can only pursue patentable things. So plans are out. Diet, exercise, right there, out of getting that level of research funding. And I've got to do single molecules going through a clinical trial. But the clinical trial shows can never do personalized medicine, right? Because I have some effect over a bell curve, but some people are on the back of the bell curve, some are on the front of the bell curve. I'm simply looking at, does this one molecule intervening in one part of a very complex dynamic cause something other than placebo? And of course, then all kind of problems associated. So everything down to the level of IP law change to where the incentives are perfectly aligned with collective well-being.
There's probably several revolutions. I was going to say a revolution, but there's probably multiple revolutions necessary for that.
Yes. So you think about it. Our underlying IP law is broken, right? We can patent single molecules that are synthetic, not complexes of molecules that are varying for individual people in a way that a clinical trial could never do because we're doing N=1 optimization, not molecules that came from natural sources, right? So the IP structure is broken. The clinical trial epistemology itself is inadequate for personalized medicine. The incentive systems where you're maximizing the lifetime revenue of a customer and a customer happens to be a patient, which means start them on meds younger and have more cross-sell, upsell, which is the side effects to other meds. All that's broken, but also the underlying epistemology of system reductionism is broken. So medicine has gotten as far as it has, and it is now more of a problem to chronic health. It's still great for acute health than it is a asset. And to transcend it, the revolutions are new science, new understanding of what IP means, new regulation, new economics. All those things have to change.
That's a really interesting point that you just made, and I guess I kind of want to go back and underscore it, that for acute health, medicine is still very useful and is probably still arguably making significant progress year after year, decade after decade. But for ongoing health, day-to-day, how you feel, what your non-emergency medical care is like, is either flatlined or possibly getting worse. I wonder when that shift took place, what year, what decade it would have been, because you could almost kind of feel that the average health of a random 35-year-old in middle America is probably worse now than it was 20 years ago.
Well, we see declining sperm rates at the industrialized world that are related to xenoestrogens in the plastics, pesticides that are endocrine disruptors, et cetera, et cetera. We see that the average mother in the United States has hundreds of petrochemical traces in her breast milk, which means what's happening at the neurotoxic and carcinogenic level of infants. So let's go to a level even higher than everything we talked about so far. What are the tier one causes of illness?